married my husband. He's been self-employed since 2001. He hired an unlicensed tax preparer, which it blows my mind that you can give everybody all of your personal information and they don't have a license of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it was his dad's friend and whatever.
Friend of a friend.
And I think so many people look at a tax preparer saying, oh, I can get you a refund or I can get your deductions up.
Yeah.
And they think it's like magic.
Welcome to the Compound Growth Podcast with Colin and Wheeler, where we talk all things growth. From financial growth to career growth, personal development to societal progress, we explore how each layer builds on the next, compounding over time to shape who we become. Each week, we break down complex ideas and emerging trends into clear, actionable insights. Because growth isn't just about numbers. It's about understanding the world and our place in it.
Katrina Kowalski, you are a CPA and a partner and owner of OnPoint Wealth and also OnPoint Tax Services as well. We just learned that you are a double Falcon, which is very exciting. And a licensed CPA, as we know. So you have a BS and MS in accounting from Bentley University. Your origin story is, from what I understand, you became a CPA because of your husband's IRS audit. Is that what led you down this path?
Mostly, yes.
Yes. Okay. So far we're on the right track. You now specialize in guiding individuals through taxes at every life stage, starting a family, launching a business, preparing for retirement. You're passionate about furthering women in business. You are a co-founder of Portsmouth's Women's Business League, a treasurer of Soul.
Co-leader.
Co-leader. Okay, great. Treasurer of Soul Models, committee member of Celebrate Her, the Portsmouth Chamber. First job at a family bookstore, which is how we got on the topic of bookstores earlier, in Waitsfield, Vermont.
Correct.
Nice. And dream alternate business of owning a bookshop in a charming resort town. How do we do?
I have two
yes.
questions. How do we do with that? Good.
Awesome.
All right. What is your favorite bookstore in Vermont?
Oh, it has to be where I worked, at this bookshop in Waitsfield.
Nice.
I love
So
that.
if you've ever been in there, it's just like stacks and stacks and stacks of books everywhere.
I haven't been to that one. There's one in Watertown I've been to.
Waterbury.
Waterbury. Damn.
I'm imagining the bookstore to look
Damn.
like a Harry Potter
awesome.
bookstore, kind of in a way,
Honestly,
with like all the
kind
books
of.
like stacking up like that.
I
Yeah,
love that.
and it was inherited. So it was a husband and wife that had it originally. And then the person I worked for, it was their son.
Oh, cool.
Oh, so it's a multi-gen small town bookstore.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's cool.
That's super cool.
All right.
I love
now,
that.
the real question, should we or should we not get a maple creamy machine in our office?
A creamy machine, definitely.
Not
I'm a
maple?
chocolate or vanilla girl.
Okay. Wow.
But
That's
I
a
will
bomb
tell
right
you,
there.
since you grew up in Vermont too, they do not. Soft serve is not the same as creamies. We just
That
agree
is
with
true.
that.
That is
That is
true.
true.
I didn't know what they were until we went to Vermont,
Yes.
and he introduced me to them. It blew my mind.
We had a retreat. We had a Stowe retreat.
Okay.
And I brought the team to get maple creamies. I think it's like the Red Barn, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
In Stowe. But I have had maple creamies in Waitsfield.
I'm sure.
So
Nice.
my daughter's favorite is maple and chocolate swirl. So you're
Okay.
just a pure chocolate
I am.
or a pure vanilla?
Mostly chocolate.
Mostly chocolate. Okay, we'll forgive you. So where do we want to start, Colin?
I would love to start with how you actually became a CPA, and then we can maybe break into some framing and stuff like that here. But we did mention that the way in which you got into becoming a CPA was because your husband was going through an IRS audit. Is that fair?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to Bentley. It's an
Yep.
accounting school.
Yep.
Accounting majors are supposed to go work accounting jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I did all of those things. I got my internship. I worked at Arthur Andersen. If anybody knows what Enron is, I was an intern at that time.
It's a fun way to learn.
It didn't take a rocket scientist to know you didn't have a job anymore, because I had friends there and they were like, they took the desks today. Oh yeah, the
Wait,
phones are
what?
gone. It was mind blowing. It was a
Liquidate, man.
mind blowing time. So they never actually told anybody they didn't have a job anymore. An intelligent human being would be like, I don't have a job anymore because I don't have a desk.
So you're just sitting Indian style in grad?
Well, I was in grad school at the time. So I had
Oh,
an
okay.
offer. So I had worked there 2 summers as an intern. I had an offer to go back after grad school. And then I was like, okay, everything's falling apart. So I went to career services and got a job at another big 5 company at the time. But I was
Yep.
auditing death certificates. And I was like,
Oh,
there's like, I can't do this for 3 years. Because at the time to get
Oh.
your CPA, you needed 3 years of audit experience.
Yeah.
And so I went home at Christmas and I said to my mom, I was like, I can't do this. And she
Yeah.
goes, so quit. And I was like, what? She was like, quit. And I'm like, and do what? She's like, I don't know, you'll figure it out. So I literally drove to the Boston office the day after Christmas, gave them my computer and said, I quit. And I went into the mortgage industry and I loved what I did, but I was getting burnt out.
Yeah.
I married my husband. He's been self-employed since 2001. He hired an unlicensed tax preparer, which it blows my mind that you can give everybody all of your personal information and they don't have a license of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it was his dad's friend and whatever.
Friend of a friend.
And I think so many people look at a tax preparer saying, oh, I can get you a refund or I can get your deductions up.
Yeah.
And they think it's like magic.
Can we drill down on that?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know people did this.
Okay.
And then we had a client a few years
Didn't know
back
people did.
that the people went to unlicensed tax preparers.
Oh.
No, I didn't know people filed taxes.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was just
I was like, wait, hang on a second.
no, but then we had a client and he's like, I got a guy. Actually, no, it was gal. I got a gal and she works magic. And I went to update her file. I'm like, so what was the name of your CPA? Oh, not a CPA. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And then she just would come up with some interesting choices in the return. I said, maybe it's worth talking to a real CPA, but then they're like, well, that's way more expensive. And so I think it's just letting people know what the difference is, because I don't know that everybody knows that the person who's filing their taxes, because a lot of people will go to H&R Block or they'll just do TurboTax or whatever. But I wonder how many people are actually asking
whether or not they're licensed.
Yeah. Are they accredited?
Yeah.
So there was a court case. I don't remember how long ago it was, but daughter's going to be 16. And I think it was somewhere around when she was born, somewhere in there, where somebody tried to get everybody who signed a tax return to have a license. And it was knocked down in court saying it was unconstitutional.
Okay.
So it blows my mind that whoever does my nails or cuts my hair needs a license, but you do not need a license to sign a tax return.
You can also, on our side of things, people will call themselves financial advisors without really having any reason, like solid reason. Like there's a famous guy, Ramit Sethi, I want to say his name is. He has like a Netflix show or whatever. And at the beginning, he's like, as a financial advisor, blah, blah, blah. He has no licenses whatsoever.
Yeah.
He doesn't exactly set for his CFP.
Yeah. What scares me and blows my mind about that is the fact that that was shot down, but yet it's in the government's best interest that a licensed person does it to ensure that they're getting all their money.
It's the price of lobbyists, Colin.
That's fair. I can appreciate that.
Think about it this way. H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt,
who
do they hire? Those people are not licensed.
No, they're not.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
So
that was mind
blowing. The thing is, if you are not licensed, you cannot represent your client before the IRS. So if you use an unlicensed tax preparer and you get audited, that person can't help you.
Important caveat. Is that why when people go through TurboTax, for example, they're like at the end, do you want audit
an attestation
or whatever?
Yeah, they pay an amount of money that somebody could represent them if they had to.
So is that what happened to your husband? Okay, so take us through that.
So I was not a CPA at the time. We got married in September. He got the audit notice in February of the next year.
Okay.
Great.
Good times.
Honeymoon.
It was not fun. So at the time, it was a lot of money to us. I mean, I think it's a lot of money to anybody. It was upwards of $50,000 to $60,000, and they opened other years of taxes because if you're, if you've understated your earnings by a certain amount, they can open other years. So it was it was a super stressful time, right?
Yeah.
But really digging in and like seeing what it was, I was like, I don't think he knowingly did anything wrong. He did what all of our clients do, right? They relied on information from someone that they thought knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is, never been through an audit. What does that actually, knock on wood, what does that actually look like? Like, is it just a bunch of back and forth emails with the government? Is it phone calls? Is it interviews? Is it what actually happens?
It can be any of those things. It depends.
Okay.
So his was a person that came to our house, asked for his records. I mean, this was in 2006. So before there was a lot of online stuff, right? So they came to our house, they asked for his receipts, they wanted to verify everything. And this is the guy that before I took over his books had like piles of receipts. When it was time to do taxes, you would go into his office and there were little piles of receipts, and he had his little calculator and he was totaling them all up. And then he would put a like sticky note on top of the pile and say, materials is blah, blah, blah amount. And this is my gas receipts. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? But that's the way a lot of people like
Totally
do it, right? And so I think they just looked at all of his piles of receipts and then realized that there was probably things in there that shouldn't have been in there. And so one of the things I think a CPA brings to the table is having that concerted conversation about what makes sense and what doesn't,
Yeah.
And I use myself and my husband, Chris, all the time. He's a contractor. I'm an accountant. Like he can run up a bill at Home Depot in any month of 50 grand or more. If I had that on my business books, people would be like, what's going on there? You know what I mean? So it's like looking at what your business is. And one of the things people always say to me is, what are the absolute business expenses I can take? And there is no absolute, because you have to know what the business is before you can decide what are true expenses or not.
That's a good point. And you mentioned this earlier, actually, a little bit with your friend's experience, client's experience, which is I think a lot of people go to CPAs because they're just looking to deduct as much as possible, not actually get themselves organized and prepare. Do you find that that's the expectation a lot of the times?
Sometimes. So a lot of discovery calls I have, if they come in saying, I want to pay the least amount of tax, then we're probably not the greatest fit, because I think it's not just about tax. I think it's got to be well-rounded. Like, we work hard in our businesses, but we don't want to show zero money if you want to buy a house or
have Social Security at some point.
Or, eventually retire, any of those things. So you have to show some money. And I think I had a mentor. I still look up to him and call him once in a while, but he called me kid. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Hogs get slaughtered.
And he was like, what? For every dollar you make, you still get 70 cents in your pocket. Like, yeah, you're giving 30 cents away, but you're still making out better.
And our tax code compared to most countries is pretty solid.
Very. Yeah. And I think that's what people miss.
When you say tax code.
Sorry, the amount that we're taxed is not that bad compared to a lot of other developed
I think
countries.
England is something like, or the UK. I've had a couple clients that have moved here from the UK, and I want to say it's like 45%.
It is, yeah.
45% for like an average rate, or is that like a flat across the board?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how it works. I know that when they come here and they do taxes for the first time, they're super excited because they think it's going to be like they're getting money back because they don't do it the same way we do it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I know Greece is like, and same with Italy too, their tax rates are closer to 50.
And they've got a VAT tax.
And they've got a VAT and everything. So
they also have universal health care. So,
there's pros and cons. Yeah.
So we've historically had higher taxes in this country, right?
Well, I actually did career day for my daughter's school 2 weeks ago, and I was looking up tax facts. And I think it was after World War II. There was one tax bracket that was 93. I think it was 93%. 93.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, it's for a very small few. It would be like having a billionaire's tax now.
Right. So I think it's interesting because we're in this point of time right now, this is not the point of what we were going to talk about today, but it's on my mind.
Might as well go through
it. So I was listening to, and I could probably actually do my homework and know the name of the woman who was speaking, but there was a Harvard professor talking about how to really tax the rich. Like, people are always saying tax the rich or tax the billionaires. How do you actually do it? And the TLDR of that was essentially, if we didn't have all this crazy fun tax code with all these, options to write things off or trust planning around it or whatever. And if there was just income tax across everything, capital gains tax gone, income tax, right? Or long-term gains gone, right? Short-term is basically, it would simplify the tax structure. It would make it harder to find maneuverabilis. And that's the whole point that she's trying to make. It's like, it's not that the quote unquote, the rich are doing something wrong. It's that they're playing by the rules of the game.
100%. Warren Buffett will say it.
Right.
Yeah.
He wrote off like his desk at work, and he was like, his tax bill was like nothing. Yeah. And he's our benevolent billionaire, right? He's the guy right. So it's interesting to me because we sit in these chairs and we help people, figure out their tax situation. And oftentimes it comes with, how do we not pay a lot in taxes, or how do we not pay a lot of taxes in our state, or whatever it might be. And I always try to remind people when this comes up and they're like, you're helping people stay rich. I try to remind them the difference between my clients and Warren Buffett. But these are the rules of the game, right? So how do you think about that in your seat? Because I know how we think about it in ours.
Yeah.
I think as long as we're following the rules. So my policy is always with my clients. I'm not the most conservative CPA you'll ever meet. I'm not the most liberal. I want to be in the middle. So I want to be able to, if I had to go to the IRS, present my case and get something called a no change and be able to sleep at night. That being said, the tax code is 70,000 pages long.
Yeah. I feel like I'm learning something
crazy.
all the time. And then I'll call Colin up and I'll be like, dude, did you know?
Yeah, right? So and there's a study out there. I don't remember who did it, but you can look it up on Google. And they basically gave the same set of facts to 50 tax preparers, and they got 50 different answers.
That's unbelievable.
So they were talking about it from an AI standpoint, saying like, can AI take over your job? Probably.
No.
I mean, they're definitely helping. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But their point is there's so many nuances in that tax code. It just depends.
That's so tricky. Yeah, that blows my mind. We were just talking about some of the tax things yesterday, and we're going through a few different cases with clients and everything like that. And it's just so crazy how many different paths you can go down to try to save money, reduce taxes, whatever it might be, whether it's trust planning or retirement accounts or capital losses, write-offs, anything. And there's a million ways to do it. I think you have a lot of job security, if I'm honest. I wouldn't worry about AI.
I think it will help us. My daughter, on the other hand, will argue that she's not so sure. But
So what does she say? How old is your daughter?
she'll be 16 in July.
16. So what is she saying?
It's interesting because most of that age group don't like it. I mean, you've heard the college campuses are booing keynote speakers from graduation off stages.
Yeah, I heard like the
like
three
that.
of them.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't hear it?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
like
no
if
one-
you
no one likes
mention
AI.
AI, so I went to her career day, right? So I just put into ChatGPT, like, what would you talk to 13 to 17-year-olds about that's exciting in the tax world, like as a career? And she was appalled that I put it in there. And I was like, well, I didn't use all of it. I just wanted to know what they would say because I don't know how to talk to 13, 17-year-olds about tax work. Like,
Wow.
yeah. So she was completely appalled by it.
So which generation is she right now?
That is not something I know.
Because
the
my
answer
daughter
to.
is 12.
So my
10?
youngest is 12.
I think your daughter's 11.
No, she just turned 12.
My
So Gen
youngest.
Alpha.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is they have a love-hate in it, the 12-year-olds anyways, with it's like we like playing with it. We hate the AI slop. Like that's already started. The pushback against like just bad art, for example, I think is part of it. But I feel like your daughter's more like on the spectrum closer to the college level, which is very, anti-establishment. Remember, what was it, Greta Greenberg? Maybe it was somebody who was she was a climate change, like right. So she spoke out a lot about that, and climate change was the big thing at that time. Maybe AI is like this generation's climate change. Like we don't, which is the same thing. I mean, they're connected, right? But
They are.
they
Yeah.
hate data centers. They don't want their jobs to be taken by AI.
Utilities. All that stuff.
I think it'll be interesting where it goes.
Yeah.
My 12-year-old, on the other hand, like is not on her devices as much as my 16-year-old at all.
Wow.
I don't know about your 12-year-old.
My 12, well, she has very limited access to her devices. The majority of her time is texting with friends. Like she's not on
Yeah,
social,
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's FaceTime or text.
Yeah, or FaceTime. There's no social, like she doesn't have social media. Like, do you have clients that are going to AI at first before they go to you?
Not necessarily AI. I have clients that like to watch videos on TikTok and then take it as advice.
That's even worse.
I think I'd take AI over that.
I think that's a hard battle.
Yeah.
So, my favorite one is if you're in business and you're not an S Corp or at a minimum an LLC, your CPA is doing it all wrong. I love that one.
The line at the end, your CPA is doing it all wrong.
Yeah,
is
it's
always
not your
great.
fault.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not licensed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and then you start asking the questions and you're like, well, these are the reasons why it might not make sense. And I always give them the reasons it might make sense too, but like AI is not at the point where it can take the human nuances in there.
Right.
in my opinion. So I think it can give you guidelines. So for us, it works really well for tax research. It's so much more efficient now. You can type things into it, and then you can ask it another question. And we have a tax specific one, so it cites the code. So we know it's not like hallucinating or finding things out there on Reddit or something like that. And that's super helpful.
Well, you have to think about that stuff because, I mean, not only are you a CPA, you're a business owner. So you have to keep in touch with all the new technologies and everything that's coming out for your own firm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to kind of like be technologically advanced and still know you're doing a good job. So my mentor that I talked about, he's 75, and he's like, I don't know why you'd ever do anything, scan everything in and meet a person virtually. It's just so much work. So I never want to be that person. I want to always like see what's new out there, and I want to work smarter, not harder, I think is the best way to say it.
Of that.
So the business that you have built and are continuing to build, tell us a little bit more about OnPoint.
So I went into this, I tell people I don't drink bourbon and I don't play golf, and I wasn't going to be partner where I was. So I loved the firm I worked at, but it was about quantity and not quality. And I really wanted to have more time to talk to my clients and to do things well instead of just rushed. And it was always more, and, less in fees if you could do it. And I was just like, that's not the way I want to run my business now. I want to do a good job. I want to be available for my clients. And I also want to have a life where I'm not tied to my computer all the time. So that balance that's in there. And that's the way I want myself and my employees to work.
That's great. What did year one, just out of curiosity, look like when you were launching your own practice? What was your year one like breaking off and starting your own practice and business?
Well, I feel like this is a hard question because I launched in August of 2019.
Okay.
And COVID hit on March 13th of 2020. So I don't think it was a normal year at all.
Yeah.
Because we were suddenly like, everything blew up, And so I kind of look at my first 3 years, honestly, as just a cluster, and not in a bad way, just like I was homeschooling. I mean, I was doing the things that all of us needed to do just to like survive.
Yeah.
It was not a normal launch, I would call it.
That's fair. I can appreciate
What is a normal launch?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's funny. I have this quote in my hand because it just brought to mind, one of your questions was like, what would you say to somebody who might want to go out on their own?
Yeah.
And I'm like, just don't overthink it. I think so many people overthink it and are like, you have to have a plan and you have to do these things. And one of my favorite quotes is Maya Angelou, who says, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better.
That's a great
I think,
one. Oh, that's solid.
I think, what I did back in 2019 looks completely different than what I do now.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. It's just, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think you have to, anybody who's a business owner is a risk taker. So that part's cool, right?
Yeah.
But you just have to take the leap. There is no thinking it. Things are going to get in your way. Wrenches are going to be thrown. You just have to figure out how to pivot or change.
Can you say that again? Do the best you can.
Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
That's like parenting right there.
Yes, that could be a whole nother conversation.
I feel like this is, as a business owner now, I constantly think about the commonalities between being a parent and being a business owner. And it's just like everything, and maybe it's just because we're parents, like everything filters through that parent prism. But that's the lens I take to so much now. And you can take a quote like that and it can be perfect for what you're talking about for a business, but it can also be perfect for just figuring things out as you go along as a parent. And I told my daughter recently I didn't know everything. And she said,
and how did she react?
Yeah, duh.
Yeah. Obviously, Dad.
Bro, obviously. But so you started this business, you have a partner, Emily, right? How did you guys meet?
Through our old business partner, Mike Lasapio. So Mike built a house next to my husband's grandmother on Merry Meeting Lake in New Durham. And so we would go up and see Gigi on the weekends. And she has one of those beautiful grandfathered in lake house properties that like just glides gently down into the lake. So everybody kind of congregated at her house for happy hours and things like that. And so over the years, I would meet Mike and his wife, Susie. Funny enough, both of Gigi's neighbors were CPAs. Go figure.
A lot of CPAs in that. Like,
Well,
So we
nowhere to
would
go.
get friendly, and Mike's wife Susie, after a couple glasses of wine, would say to me, "Mike needs a retirement plan." I'm like, "Thanks, Suze, not it." And that was a conversation probably for 3 years, and then my husband proposed moving to New Hampshire. I thought he was crazy. And then I said, you know what? If I can find something that gives me the freedom that I had in my old firm, then I'll think about it. I interviewed at 2 places. One was like the most horrible date you can possibly imagine. The guy talked about himself for the first full hour of the interview, the one hiring me.
Nice.
And I was like, no, like just no.
Can't
And
run
so
away fast enough.
on my drive home from that, I said, you know what? I can't work for somebody else. I've got to do this some other way. Oh, Mike wants to retire. So what does that look like? So I sent him an email and I said, I know I've said no for years, but what would it look like if I was interested? And so then I met him and Emily. Emily had worked for him for 20 years. And she specifically said she was never going to be a partner with anybody. And I was like, I think you can do it. And so we worked together I started in 2019. We worked together for almost 4 years. And then Mike wanted to exit. So we became partners. And it works really well because she loves to do the operations side. I hate the operations side.
I can appreciate that.
So I've got like a well-balanced partnership and somebody that does the stuff I don't like. She doesn't love networking and like going out and talking to people. And I like doing that part. So it makes a really good relationship together.
Yeah.
It's good to have that yin and yang.
Yin yang.
Yes.
Going back to the guy that interviewed for you, how long was that total interview?
Almost 2 hours.
So 2 hours. So you at least got 50%. Congratulations.
At the end.
At the end.
Do you know what the
You had to
funniest
wiggle
part
your
was?
way in.
I actually declined his offer because he gave me an offer at the end.
Okay.
I declined it. It was Memorial Day weekend, and he called me on my cell phone and gave me all the reasons why I was making the worst decision of my life by declining his offer.
Perfect.
So how often?
Yeah.
in this
Sounds like you made the right
industry-
decision.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
How often do you come across that type? I mean, I feel like I know there's a shortage of CPAs. Maybe not of unlicensed tax preparers, but
Yes. CPAs
there's a shortage of
specifically.
CPAs in our industry. On the advisory side, it's very male oriented. Finance is just very male dominated. It seems like the CPA side of things is also male dominated. Is that accurate, or is it a little bit more split?
It is, but believe it or not, according to Bentley, the graduating rate is much more female heavy in accounting. This is where I get up on my soapbox. Sorry, guys. But
This is what you're here for.
Yeah. Go ahead. That's why we got you a
it
mic.
drives me nuts that there's so much old school work harder, get the billable time in, all of these things. And that it's not just females, although that is the prevalent amount that has left because they're like, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. But I think it's that younger generation in general that doesn't want that grind kind of mentality anymore. And they're really thinking about what work-life balance looks like. And if you talk to older CPAs, it's just not their thing. And it's funny because I posted this on LinkedIn right around April 15th. I always send a message to my mentor on April 15th saying, hey, how was your season? Hope you're at the bar. And this particular year, it was 5:00 and he's like, nope, not yet. And I knew he wasn't because I talked to some of the other people still in the office. They're like, yeah, we're still all here. And I was like, oh, that sucks.
Bummer,
Like,
yeah.
and I said something to him and he goes, well, I have more tax returns than you. And I was like, so?
What does that matter?
And he goes, well, I like the money. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like,
What are we talking about here?
so I feel like there's that disconnect. Like you can still make good money and have a good life. And hopefully the tides are turning. There's a lot. I'm involved in the Massachusetts Society of CPAs, which is now going to be the New England. I'm super excited about.
Oh, that's great.
They're combining all the states except for Connecticut. But there's an entrepreneurial firm network in there that's a lot of younger CPAs, and they just have a totally different outlook on what this is going to be. So I'm excited that that's what's coming up through the ranks. And I'm really, really hoping that a lot of those people that left to stay home or get burned out and are like, no way, I'm never doing this again, can understand that they can do this, especially if they like it, and still have a work-life balance.
I have been talking about this with my wife. She's in the healthcare industry and she really wanted to become a doctor. But then when she was in pre-med and everything, getting all her prerequisites and thinking about MCATs, she decided to hold off on it because she wanted a work-life balance. And we talked to a few different doctors and they all advised her to not become a doctor. So she became a PA instead. And all of her friends ended up becoming PA too for that work-life balance. But I think it's a shift, not just in finance, but it seems like in every industry, people are trying to go that way. And I think it's nice and healthy that that is the way that the tide's going, personally.
Oh, 100%. I had probably 3 weeks ago, I had a client call me, longtime client. So his father's a client, has his own business. He has the son has a business. He's like, you know what? He's like, I thought I always wanted to be my dad. He's like, but I don't really want to be my dad. I want to right size my business. So we weren't talking about growing. We weren't talking about any of those things. We're talking about how can he right size his business because his wife's traveling for work. She really loves her job, but they have 3 young kids. And he's like, I need to be there at 3 to pick them up. And he's like, and that's what I want. I want to have my business and I want to do this and I want to still make money. And you can do it. But I think the older generation, my parents never talked about that for sure.
No, definitely not.
I actually grew up in a world that was a little bit more like that. I had a mom who was a teacher. I married a woman whose dad was a town librarian and mom was a social worker. And they were always around. Like you were always around for dinner, right? You were always around for the games. And I think what's interesting, I'm going to throw spinach in your punch bowl here and say that there's no such thing as work-life balance. I think it's actually problematic that we think that there should be work-life balance because then we're just designing a different structure that we have to act within. When I think it's really that sometimes work pulls more from you and sometimes life pulls more from you. And it's not necessarily about finding the balance. It's about maybe finding flexibility.
I agree with that. So I had another client conversation where she was an entrepreneur and she was like, she just didn't want to do it anymore. She was so excited that she's getting a corporate job and she can like work whatever the hours they say. And she has a team and she has structure. And she was saying all these things. And in my head, I was thinking, oh my God, that sounds awful. I'm really happy for her.
Yeah.
But to me, I was like, that is not what I want. I do want that flexibility so that if I have to go to the Greek god showcase on Monday for 7th graders, I can clear my calendar and do that. And I don't have to say that to anybody. So I agree to a point. But to me, work-life balance just means being able to do what I want to do and have the freedom to have my family the way I want to have my family. And I think what's really important to me personally is I was not good at staying home. Like, it's just not me. And that's okay. There are people that's like what they do and they love it. But for me, I wanted to show my girls, no, you can work and do what you love and still have a family and do all the things. Yeah. And sometimes they know that mom has a meeting and sometimes they know I'm at school. So like figuring out what that balance is.
Well, I think what you're also demonstrating is independence, right? And that's maybe the same thing in a different wrapper. Right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I have found when we were in the corporate world, I actually think I worked a little bit less in a lot of ways because now I feel like the operations of the business takes up a lot of time. We have to think about payroll and taxes are important, hence why we're here.
And all the other stuff.
And all the other stuff, like it all adds up. But to your point, it's your own thing and you're dictating when you do it. You know, if Kaylee's at a meeting at night or doing something, I can log into my computer and get a bunch of stuff done at 7 o'clock. And, you know, that's my own time.
And
that
that's your
works.
choice.
And that's my choice.
What you want to do. I think one of the things is just, what do you want?
Yeah. 100%.
Because some people do want to just clock in and clock out, not have to think about it anymore.
And that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's worth the sacrifice of some sort of freedom, I guess, to that point.
I think there's this myth out there that if you're self-employed, you can just sit back and you have made it. I was at a bridal shower and I didn't really know anybody there. And this woman sitting next to me. So the groom is a good friend of my husband's. So I didn't really know any of the people at the bridal shower. And this woman sitting next to me was like, oh my gosh, you're self-employed. She's like, so you get to make your own hours? Like, you don't have to work Fridays? I'm like,
I will be working Fridays.
I will be working today after I go home because I have some other stuff to do. But again, that's my choice, right? It's blood, sweat, and tears in a good way. I'm building something that I'm proud of.
Speaking of building things, with OnPoint, in particular, the tax side and the wealth side too, you guys have a niche that you focus on, which is furthering women in business. Is that fair to kind of say?
I'm hesitant to label myself as just women. We are a
Right.
women-run firm, so I'll go with that.
Okay.
But I want to help business owners that are passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And are committed to following, all of those lifestyle things we've just talked about.
What led you to that niche in particular, like working with business owners? What do you like about?
Well, first it was my husband, and realizing talking to him was like, oh, he didn't know what he didn't know. So a lot of small business owners, we get so into our business that we don't think outside. And then we're like, where are we at?
Right.
And then you have no ideas. And numbers make people anxious. I've been compared to a dentist more times than I can count. And I don't want to be a dentist. I want to be somebody who they can call and be like, it's okay. And I think I got to that point, not working on business owners first, but just my old firm. This was pre-COVID too. We met almost everybody in person. So we would go over the tax return in person. And we were very close to EMC. So we had a lot of EMC salespeople. And you know how salespeople work. Sometimes their income's way up, sometimes their income's way down. And I had this pretty young couple who had just graduated from Bentley. And the first year, she was just in tears at my office because she owed a lot of money. She had a lot of commissions, right? But she was completely unprepared. And so we had this relationship for almost 8 years. And the 8th year she came in, I still remember it so clearly. She goes, Katrina, it does not matter what you say to me. I have a bottle of wine on ice. I'm either going to celebrate or I'm just going to be a little sad, but I know it's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, I've done my job, right? There's no anxiety in it anymore. So I think it's more about education than anything else. And I think that there's a lot of CPAs that don't take the time to explain what you're looking at. You sign a tax return under penalties of perjury, and how many people can say what's on their tax return?
Totally.
Basically no one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's great because obviously you're increasing awareness. The education component of what we do jointly is really, really important. And I think that, business owners, obviously you have the experience of working with your husband and seeing what I got a bill from my contractor yesterday. It's illegible. I can't read it. And it's totally different.
Is it handwritten?
It's
On a
handwritten, of
napkin.
course. And it's totally different from the last one that he gave me in December, because it's been this long that I've been waiting for this project to get done. It started last June.
It's just a deck.
It's just a text. No, he built a porch. That's he's important. Anyways, but it's also totally different from the last bill that he gave me. And I don't know how he's keeping track of it, but it's not well. And I think that there's a lot, just as business owners, I know I have to take time to keep track of things.
Mhm.
And it's nice. Is there a software that you recommend for people just as when they're on the go, like an app or anything like that? We can all do QuickBooks, but what's the best way for people who are just busy entrepreneurs to
Hire a
track?
bookkeeper? I did it myself.
Yes.
So when I went into this, my first year, I was a W-2 employee. I told people to keep track of their stuff, but I didn't have to do it myself, right?
Right.
Suddenly, I'm a business owner. COVID hits. What is the first thing to go? My books, right? Because I'm talking to clients. They're having struggles. And then, holy crap, I have to do my tax return. And it's a it show. You know what I mean? Because I haven't taken the time to do the things I practice or practice the things I preach.
Yeah.
And so the best thing to me was to hire a bookkeeper that keeps me accountable. So there is no magic bullet. I still have a bookkeeper who I guarantee you on Thursday will be like, Katrina, where's this receipt? I'm like, oh my God. It's not a big deal.
Don't worry about that receipt.
Wait, your bookkeeper asks for receipts?
Ours does too. I just archive the emails.
Seriously. So I save them all the email and I just send them to her.
Yeah.
But having somebody else who's accountable.
Yeah.
That I'm accountable to, honestly.
I found the first few years of business were incredibly tricky to figure out the tax side of things in general, because you've never done it before. There's all these surprises, self-employment tax being one of them. Can you go over some surprises that you see oftentimes with new business owners that tend to pop up, or things that people don't know, in general when they're starting a business? Because I feel like there's so many things.
There are so many things. I think the number one, it's funny you said self-employment tax, because it's the number one thing I say. I was like, well, when you're a W-2 employee, they take the money out and then you're like, whatever. You don't see it.
You don't
so you don't
notice.
even think about it, right?
Right.
But now you have to make a concerted effort. And it's really hard when you get those first checks to put away enough money for taxes. You're like, no, I need this money.
Right. Yes.
I can deal with the taxes down the road.
I'll figure it out in April.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I give you a big tax bill and you're like, what? So having the discipline, I always tell, one of the most important things is keeping a savings account. And then every time you get that money, I say 25% has to go to the tax account. And I'll tell people it's really hard. Chris and I have been married for almost 20 years. And I will tell you, this April was the first time I had more money in our tax account than I needed.
Really?
So it's not that we were like off a lot one way or the other. It's just we were both on fluctuating incomes. And so it's really hard with two business owners, let alone one, to figure out where you're going to be at the end. And this is what I do. But, like I said, if money gets down, you're like, I can just take a little out of that tax account. It's really hard.
It is. Requires a lot of discipline.
Or accountability.
Right.
That too.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's an important part.
Yeah, that is.
All right, just to pivot. Wealth transfer. So we talked earlier in the conversation about how much wealth there is in this country now because there's so many billionaires. We're about to potentially see a trillionaire when Elon Musk's
SpaceX comes out.
Assuming it doesn't get absorbed.
Assuming it happens, which I have on some authority, good or bad, but it might not. But so there's all this wealth out there and we have an aging population. Baby boomers have not spent what they assumed they were going to spend early on in retirement. Silent generation had their assets just increase because we've had great markets over the long run. So we have all this wealth and it's waiting to move to the next generation. And some of it might be moved in very tax efficient, strategic ways. But the standard practice is more likely for this $34 trillion to go from generation A to generation. But in between, it goes potentially from the man of generation A running everything to the woman in generation A having to make all those decisions. And I think that's the aspect of this that not everybody is paying a lot of attention to. And I remember back in my early Wells Fargo days, we had very little training. But one thing that stuck with me, financial advisors is basically, they just throw you into the water and you figure out how to swim. They don't.
CPAs work.
That's why my dad taught me to swim. It's the whole thing in my life.
Good luck, kid.
Just like parenting. Anyways, but one thing they said is when you have a meeting and there's a couple at the table, make sure you pay attention to both parties. They're partners, right? It's not just one. It's not, I said A and B. That's even that by itself is rude. But there is in any dynamic, somebody who kind of takes a back seat, I find, when I'm sitting in these meetings with couples.
There's usually a leader.
There's usually a leader. Sometimes it's the woman, sometimes it's the man. More often than not, it's the man. But then at some point, because men typically die first, the woman is likely to be making the decisions at some point. And if they haven't been involved along the way, it can lead to a great discomfort. We were talking to a client yesterday about some of this process of just figuring out, I'm in charge now. I have to do everything. And so then they have to increase their understanding, to your point, of just what does this all mean? And, ask the right questions, et cetera. Do you ever find that from your side of things when you're working with a couple and then the husband passes on, you're left working with a widow? Do they feel a sense of overwhelm? Do they ask more questions? Are they asking the right questions? What is your experience with all this?
Yeah, I think what you say is 100% true. So back to when I used to meet everybody in person, if the husband was the one in charge of the finances, I only ever saw the husband. Like the client we talked to yesterday, up until he got sick, I only talked to him. I didn't know the wife. Vice versa, if the wife was the one in charge, sometimes I would see the husband, but he'd be sitting there in his chair this. And he'd be mad
like
that
a
he
teenager.
was here.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Teenager,
So they had a
yeah.
fight. And the reason he's here is trying to make her happy. But this is not happy. Whatever this is, it's not happy.
If you're not engaged, don't come,
But so yes, I've seen that. On the flip side, I had a woman come in. She's still a longtime client, but her husband was an attorney and took care of everything. And he passed away very suddenly. He had a heart attack out of nowhere. She literally came in with a box in tears saying, I have no idea what to do.
Mm.
None. And so we sat down. It probably took us 3 hours. We went through everything in the box, trying to figure out if we had everything, like those things. It's now probably 12 or 15 years later, and like she's got it, but she had no idea. So I use this story with my clients all the time. When Julie, my oldest, was born, my in-laws, well, Chris's mom lived in Arizona. So he took Julie out to Arizona. She was like a year and a half old. We just moved into a house like a mile from his dad, and it had a detached garage, and it was tax season. So February, it's raining, I'm snowing, and I'm trying to shovel the driveway, but I don't know how to get into the garage. He told me the code, but I just didn't listen. So I call my father-in-law. I was like, hey, how do you get into the garage? And he gives me a lecture about how I should know how to do these things and be self-sufficient and blah, blah, blah. He's not wrong.
Right.
Like,
You probably didn't want to hear it at the time.
It's not helpful, right?
Yeah.
no, but he's not wrong. I
Yeah.
should have known the code. I should have known how to get in the garage. I know how to shovel, but I just didn't have the tools to get there. You
Right.
know what I mean? So it's the same thing with finance. I don't think, like, if your spouse is the one that takes it over, fine, but you have to know enough to know where things are and what you have and kind of what your decisions are.
Yeah. I remember growing up, my father used to always tell me, if something happens to me and your mom, there's a box in the basement that has all of our stuff. And I'm like, great. What do I do with it?
So I think, and the other thing is it's much harder these days because everything's electronic.
It
Like,
is.
I remember hearing somebody talk, this was probably like 15 years ago, and his only job was to go into houses. And he was like, you have to look under drawers because there's savings bonds saved there. And I'm not joking. I've had a client who found hundreds of thousands of savings bonds in a closet that he was cleaning out of his mom's. There was some that had his dad's name on them. His dad had been dead for 10 years. So
Oh, wow.
we don't have as much of that anymore. However, I don't know if it's good or bad because it's really much harder to find it electronically if you don't know you have it. So being
true.
involved in where that is, or at least saying, look, if something happens to me, call Colin, call Wheeler, call Katrina, call someone. They got to
Yeah.
know where most of your things are.
Well, I think to me, I had a conversation with a woman whose husband passed away last year. She's a client now. And, she was just like, well, I've got this guy that does this, and I got this guy here, and I got this guy here, and I got this guy here. And she had her finances spread around like 10 different people. And I'm like, if that's a system that works for you, fine. But eventually your kids are going to have to figure out how to settle your estate as well. And you have grandkids, and you need a holistic system where the people are talking to each other. And if everything is siloed, think about the fact that you have to go through an estate settlement at every single one of these places. And as we know, we've talked about this with clients, an estate settlement is not an easy thing to go through oftentimes.
And I think the other thing you have to think about is second marriages. My dad's
Totally.
second marriage. So
Yeah, great point.
his wife was in the ICU 7 years ago. And, her daughter deals with all the health stuff because she's in the healthcare, but I get called for all the money stuff. So I drive the 4 hours to Vermont. I go and see her in the hospital. We're sitting there the next day. My dad's like, we got to make our car payment. I'm like, where is her loan? It took us 4 hours to figure it out. And I was like, okay, I understand you guys are keeping everything separate. It's a second marriage. Like, I get it, but you gotta know where the other person's stuff is.
Right.
Like, this is 4 hours we could have been at the hospital instead of trying to figure this out.
That's a whole other can of worms, right? The second marriage stuff, we have couples, they're both clients, and their finances are totally separate. Like, they don't even know what each other they have at all. And you're trying in our side of things to figure out a financial plan for them. And I'm like, well, this is kind of dependent on the other party.
And it's like, can I tell your wife you have this IRA or no?
It happens a lot. But I think,
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the concept of a love language?
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like I'm stealing this from Scott Galloway. So he says
I love Scott.
that when he was growing up, and many men of his generation, the love language that was taught to them was money. This is the love language. It's money, 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 money. And so then that's what they focus on. It's just what they were taught to focus on. And I think that happens a lot, particularly just like in this country, right? And it's not, obviously, women are very capable of running the money, of like being in charge of their finances. They don't sometimes, very capable women do not have an interest in it because they were not taught to have an interest in it. And I think that when you treat everybody, like, you basically say, hey, everybody needs to have an interest in this. This is important. We have to figure it out. It's just like, I don't have an interest in healthcare. I hate healthcare. but I have an aging mom that
So
I
you
have
have
to
to
go to
know
these
about
appointments. Yeah, I have to figure it out. And it's not second nature for me.
I would never go to the doctors if it wasn't for Kaylee. Never.
Jess is like, just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Go to the doctor.
I think I already do that.
Nope,
But I
nope.
think it's the
Go to
same
the
kind
doctor.
of thing, right? Like you don't have to be good at it, but you have to at least know where it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things we don't talk about. It's funny. So my daughter, Julie, has a friend who is kind of like my adopted child. They're at the house a lot. And I'm taking them to a workforce training program. So we have conversations in the car when I take them home. And one day she said, "Can I ask you about money?" And I was like, "Yeah." But I think that's the
course.
thing. Like we keep it so closed and we
Yeah.
think it's rude to ask these questions or rude to ask somebody how they budget or things like that. And I think we need to take that piece out. It's not rude. You don't know what you don't know unless you
Right.
ask the questions, and you got to learn it somehow. So if you don't have somebody to teach you, who else do you ask?
We were talking about this yesterday when you were leaving work and I was getting in the car, and we were saying how much we learn every day about whether it's like money management or taxes or whatever it might be. And we've been doing this for each of us over a decade. And it's and like we're in the industry, so for someone to not know something, you shouldn't be embarrassed about it. It's the system's designed to be complicated. Like it's 70,000 pages, the tax code.
Yep.
Yeah. So
real quick, I know we're running long and it's hot in here, but we should just quickly address the IPOs, right? Because there are a lot of very large IPOs coming out this year. You have clients that have equity. Even if they're not IPOs, it's just, stock in companies, right? I feel like the love language for these large companies now is issuing stock.
IPO. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
RSUs.
if it's private, then the IPO. What are some like just significant pratfalls that you run into for people that they don't think about when
They don't.
have?
It's not tangible money to them, so they don't think of it as income. I had one couple, and I can't remember the company that they were at, but it IPO'd and then it tanked. And they owed a ton in taxes, but they didn't actually have that in stock capital. So it was a really hard conversation to have.
Because it vested when the price was high, then they wrote it down. Yep.
And there was nothing you could do at that point because they hadn't contacted us ahead of time. So I think when it comes to those kind of conversations, you have to know ahead of time, and you have to get in contact with your CPA and your financial planner at the same time and sit down and have a meeting. Because again, there's no right answer for the same person twice, which they have to be educated about what that means and the risk they're taking, because they might get stock, but it's not a done deal. It's not money in the bank.
No, we actually had something very similar. It was the healthcare company we talked about not too long ago. We had a client, exact same situation. She was confused why she was paying so much tax, and her income was low and her quarterlies were so high and all these other things. And I was looking at her RSU package, and she received several 100,000 shares vested essentially for this company. And it was a huge bonus. And this was over a year and a half ago. And she rode the stock all the way down 65%. And the tax bill came and she basically liquidated it, and the RSUs were gone. Like it was, and I met with her a few weeks after the taxes had happened and all this stuff. And it was like, God.
Well, and when you get those kind of stocks, it's super emotional. I can tell you, I worked for Countrywide. You know that company that's a bad word now?
Yeah.
It was laughable. I sold my stock for $31 once it changed to Bank of America because I just kept saying, no, it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
Right.
So now I'm a huge proponent of having conversations, diversifying if you can, like not putting all your eggs in one basket. And it's important to have somebody like myself or like you guys that kind of can take that emotion out and give them options.
I heard a quote by Mark Cuban that said diversification's for the weak. I would actually say diversification is for the intelligent in a lot of ways, because we've just seen it so many times where people have been blown up by positions like that.
Well, you see that it's experiential. Like Mark Cuban is one of the luckiest. Like he sold his
easy for you to say. Yeah.
Yahoo was throwing money around. So obviously he had a very concentrated investment. It worked out for him. And like, I think when you reach a certain level of wealth, you can get there by concentrating, but you also can concentrate more because you have more to do that.
Yeah.
I think that you're right that most stocks are volatile. IPOs are even more volatile. right? We just had Cerebrus IPO like 2 weeks ago and went down 25% immediately. And we have some very large IPOs coming with SpaceX and then the AI companies. There's a lot of activity in this space, kind of like there was in around 2000. And we have to be aware of the risk there because it's an opportunity. There's a reward potentially, but we have to be risk aware and not risk averse and talk about it ahead of time. I guarantee anybody who works at SpaceX is getting LinkedIn blown up every day. Like, hey,
Yeah.
right? I don't think it's CPAs.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is there's no shortage of advisors offering to help them out. But I think getting access to the CPA is something that people don't always know how to do. How do you find a good CPA, right? Most of our clients just come to us and ask us like,
well, and employees also don't know what they have.
right.
Do you know how many times I've had a conversation like, oh yeah, I get RSUs. And then you're looking and you look through the tax files and you're like, wait, what are these? Oh, these are incentive stock options. Well, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah. ISOs are another. Yeah.
So
but it's all in the same place when you log into Schwab. So
right. But
how do they know?
But they don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's having that conversation with somebody who will dig in.
Yeah. I think it's really important for your CPA and advisor and all of these things to be coordinated too as well. And I think that's like a huge advantage for OnPoint Wealth in general is the fact that you get tax advice and investment advice because they so often go hand in hand. And I think in a lot of ways they shouldn't be siloed.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
It's a great place to end it. Question for you before we go.
Yep.
You love books, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
CPAs tend to have a very busy spring or winter into spring, and then maybe a little bit more time for reading in the summer. Do you have a summer reading list? Like, do you have books on a shelf waiting for you to get to them?
So I like the Goodreads app, and I have way more books there than I can ever read in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So it kind of sways me as like whatever's there. So right now, we don't have a fiction book. It's funny, I was talking to Colin about this. In tax season, I only read fiction because I need a way to shut off my brain. But right now I'm reading Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud, which is a business book.
Okay. Necessary Endings. Okay.
All
Highly
things
recommend.
ends.
But I just finished I think it's The Last Green Valley by Mark Sullivan. So I read constantly. It's the only way my brain shuts off.
So
I
you
love it.
read like before you go to sleep at night, and that's well, my 8 sleep app tells me to do that every night. So, and so does the Whoop. It's very consistent.
You should listen.
Katrina, thank you so much for coming.
Yes. Thank you so much, Katrina. This was very fun.
I hope it was everything that you hoped and expected it would be. Now we're going to have another hour where you get to talk more than us.
About tax planning.
Sign me up.
Thank you.
The information in this material is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Investment advice offered through Integrated Partners, doing business as Ko-Fi Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor. Integrated Partners does not provide legal, tax, mortgage, advice, or services. Please consult your legal tax advisor regarding your specific situation. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. The economic forecasts set forth in this material may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that the strategies promoted will be successful.
Compound Growth with Wheeler and Colin, sponsored by Ko-Fi Advisors. Reach out today.